and we've been talking about the kingdom, and we've been talking about the kingdoms of Hellenism and Judaism, Israel and Greece, and Hanukkah is all about the war between those two. So that's what I'm going to try to weave together. So we are in Vayetze, which is Genesis 28, and that means and he left. So now Jacob is leaving Beersheba. He's leaving his family because let's turn it down just a hair, because his brother is going to kill him. His brother wants to kill him. Esau wants to kill Jacob or Israel. And remember, there's a war between Esau, and I showed you last week in the Torah portion last week that Esau, Edom, is considered in Judaism, all through Judaism, is considered Rome. And therefore, by extension, it is considered Rome-based Christianity. And that kingdom is at war with the kingdom that God put his seed in, which is Israel, or Judaism. So, he's about to leave. I've got the passage pared down a little bit here. Genesis 28, 10 through 19. I pared it down to the stuff I want to talk about. Jacob departed from Beersheba and went to Haran. And he came to the place. Now we're going to be talking about the place. We did this last year. We're going to do it again this year. The place, and spent the night. Because the sun had set, and he took some of the stones of ha-makom. Now the place in Hebrew is ha-makom. Ha-makom. So I'm just going to say ha-makom here. And put them under his head, and lay down in ha-makom. He had a dream, and behold, the ladder was set on the earth with its top reaching to the heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, Yehovah stood above it and said, I am Yehovah, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give it to you and to your seed. There's the word seed, zerah, seed. Now, Abraham's got more than just Isaac. Do you know how many kids Abraham had after he had Isaac?
6, 7.
I think it was 6. By Keturah. Sarah had 2. And then Keturah, he married again after Sarah died. He's in his 110s, and he marries Keturah, and she has several kids. So he's got lots of seed. And God said, no, it's not going, your seed is not going through all those other kids, going through one of your kids, Isaac. And then Isaac has Jacob and Esau, and God again limits it. He says, I'm not putting the seed in both, I'm only putting it in Jacob. So he's talking to Jacob. God is talking to Jacob, and he says, the land on which you lie, I will give it to you and to your seed. Your seed will also be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west, east, north, and south, and in you and in your seed will all the families of the earth be blessed. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely Yehovah is in ha-makom. And I did not know. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none, actually that should be ha-makom also. How awesome is ha-makom? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob arose early in the morning, took the stone that he had put under his head. Do you see something weird there? In the beginning it says he took stones, plural. And now at the end it says he took the stone, singular. And set it up as a pillar and poured oil on its top. And he called the name of ha-makom Bethel, house of God. So here's an illustration that I did for the Tree of Life version of the Bible. And it has the Hebrew of that promise. Ki'im Beit Elohim v'zeh sha'ar hashamayim. Actually, it's the promise that Jacob said. This is not just words, it's a promise that Jacob said. For this is the house of God, v'zeh sha'ar hashmayim, and this the gate of heaven. So wherever he is, he's promising that that's where the house of God is going to be, wherever that is. And he calls it Bethel. And here's Jacob, and here's the ladder, and it looks like DNA strand, because that's what I thought it was. That's what I think it was. It was a strand, it was life. I mean, our DNA is basically a ladder. It's a twisting ladder. And in all the ascents in the Bible and in the temple, like the first, second, and third story in the temple, they got to it by means of a winding staircase that looked like a DNA strand. This is kind of like what the staircase looked like. And so that's why I put a DNA strand for the ladder, because many people believe that's what it was. So this verse that we're going to look at, the first one, then Jacob departed from Beersheba. Now, think about this. It says he leaves Beersheba and he went to Haran, and he came to ha-makom. So what's the place? Just think about what it's saying. He departs from Beersheba and he went to Haran, and he came to the place. So where's the place? Haran, right? Yes? Makes sense? Okay. Genesis 28:2 says, Isaac told Jacob to go to Haran. In 28:2, he tells him to go. He says, I want you to go to Haran. Jacob blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of your family. And so he tells him, he wants him to go to Haran. And then in verse 5, it says two things. It says, Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram, to his family's house. Then, well, the two things are, Isaac sent Jacob away, and it says he went to Haran. Yes? Yeah. So he's gone from Israel. He's gone. He's out of Israel.
So Padan Haran is...
We would think that Padan Aram or Haran is the place, because he says he went to Haran and he came to the place. And then in 28:10 it says, then Jacob departed from Beersheba and he went to, it does not say toward Haran, it says leharan, to Haran. It doesn't say toward in Hebrew, it says he went to Haran. And he came to ha-makom. So, just reading the text, where would you think ha-makom, the place, is? Haran. Makes sense, yeah? So, no Bible scholars or rabbis say it was Haran, the place. None. Zero. Because it wasn't. So what God is doing here is he's again, this happens often in the Bible, God sets you up. He's setting you up to think a certain way and then flip it on us so that he teaches you something completely different. Now, the only way to do that properly is to take you step A, B, C, D, and then flip it and make you go somewhere else, so that you can see that there's a pattern. You go this way, and all of a sudden you're going somewhere else. That's how the whole Bible works. The whole Bible. It tells you, this, then this, then this, then this, and it means something completely different. Like stones. Stones don't mean stones in the Bible. They mean something else. Well, how are you going to know what they mean? You have to follow the story. The story goes like A, B, C, D. And then it says every single time the stone is whatever, something else. Same thing here. So we're being set up by God to go, he's gone to Haran and he came to the place. Well, ha-makom, the place is Haran. And now we're going to see something completely different. And it's really important. here's the bottom line that you're going to see. Well, if you pay attention, you'll see this. That all of God created Judaism, all of it, is going to be done in the kingdom so we can know God. All of God created Judaism is supposed to be done now so we can know God. If we do it, we will be reflecting heaven. If we don't do it, we are not reflecting heaven. You might have a nice life, you might be blessed, you might get nice things, you might be happy, but you're not reflecting heaven, and you do not come to know God as he truly is. Now that's what we're going to do. You don't have to believe me yet. I'm going to try to prove that. I'm going to try to show it to you. So let's see if I can do it. So this place, ha-makom, what we want to do is find out where ha-makom is, and why is it even in the Bible? Why is it important? If you go to Genesis 22, to the akedah, the binding of Isaac. Do you guys know where the binding of Isaac took place? Huh? Anybody know? It took place on the Temple Mount. What is now the Temple Mount? What has been the Temple Mount for 3,000 years. It took place on the Temple Mount on the stone that is called Even Hashatia, which means the stone, the foundation stone. The foundation stone. And that, this is what all the rabbis say, you can believe it or not believe it, that Abraham was going to sacrifice his son on the Even Hashatia, the foundation stone, that later became the stone that held, guess what? The Ark of the Covenant. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was set. All right, well, be that as it may, it might be, it might not be. In chapter 22, it came about after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Yitzhak. Verse 3, Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men. And then it says, and he arose and went to ha-makom, of which God had told him. Now, it doesn't read that way in English. It just says the place that God told him about. Does not say that in Hebrew. It says he went to ha-makom. God told him about it. That's what it says. He went to ha-makom. God told him about it. On the 3rd day, Abraham raised his eyes and saw ha-makom from a distance, from far off. It doesn't just mean like I can see it way over there, over yonder. It doesn't mean that. It means into the future. He saw it afar off. It says in Numbers, the Balaam, when he's giving his prophecies, it says, I see him now. I see him now. Sorry, I see him, but not now. I see him, but not clearly. He's coming in the future. Well, it says he lifted up his eyes and looked and said, I see him, but not now. I see him, but not clearly. He's coming in the future. Same thing happened here. In the Bible, when people lift their eyes up, it means they're looking spiritually to the future. Almost without exception. There's like 2 or 3 exceptions. Almost without exception. When they lift their eyes up, they see into the future. Usually, they're seeing the Messiah. Not always, but usually. And in this case, I'm going to show you that absolutely Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the Messiah in the future. But where is he? It says he saw ha-makom in the future. And I'm going to show you he saw the Messiah. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So wherever ha-makom is, that's where the Messiah is, which I'll show you. Or that's where the day of the Lord is, which I will show you. And then in, well, that's good. He saw from afar off, just like Balaam. Look at verse 9 of 22. 22:9. They came to ha-makom. God told them. And Abraham built the altar there and arranged the wood and bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Where did he bind his son? Where did he bind his son? At ha-makom. At ha-makom. Let's use the Hebrew, because I'm trying to get you to think in the Hebrew. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. Now in verse 14, after the act, look at this. It says, Abraham called the name of ha-makom Jehovah Jireh. It's horrible. Yehovah Yireh. Yehovah Yireh. Which, do you know what that means? They translated God will provide. It doesn't mean that. You know what it means? God, Yehovah is seen. That's what it means. Yireh means to see. About 2 implications away from the root means provide. But the root means to see. It's that simple. On ha-makom, God is seen. And so he names the place. This is where you're going to see God. This is where you're going to see Yehovah. Yehovah Yireh. Do you understand so far?
Yeah.
That on that spot is where you will see God. And if you want to say where you'll see God provide the sacrifice, you can say that too. But the main understanding of that word Yireh means to see. Now go to John 8:56 through 58, and here's where I'm going to prove my point of what I was saying, that Abraham lifted up his eyes, saw into the future, just like the other prophets, and he saw the Messiah, and he saw the day of the Lord. He saw the day of the Lord. 8:56. Your father, well, let's read verse 55. These are Jewish people talking to Yeshua. No, this is Yeshua talking to Jewish people. You have not come to know him, but I know him. And if I say I don't know him, I'll be a liar just like you. But I do know him, and I keep his word. Your father, Jewish people, your father, Abraham, rejoiced to see what?
My day.
My day. What day?
The day of the Lord.
Also the day of Yeshua.
Okay.
Because it's Yeshua talking, and Yeshua says, he saw my day. He saw my day. He saw me. So when Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked into the future, not only did he see the day of Yeshua's coming, but he also saw the day of the Lord. So here's a time clock. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Here's around the year 2000 in biblical calendar. Around the year 2000 is when Abraham did the akedah with his son. And when he did the akedah, where did he do the akedah? At ha-makom. At ha-makom, he lifted up his eyes and he looked to the future, to the year 4000, which is the year that Yeshua died in the biblical calendar. He died in the year 4000, 2 days later. From the year 2000 to the year 4000, 2 days later. Each day is 1,000 years. But he also looked farther to the future, to the 7th day, the year 6000, which is the day of the Lord. So that's why Yeshua said he saw my day and he rejoiced to see it. Because not only did he see at ha-makom, not only did he see the death of the Messiah at ha-makom in Jerusalem, but he also saw the coming of the day of the Lord, which is what ha-makom is a picture of. That's what I'm going to show you next. So the 2 things that ha-makom show us is the death of Yeshua and the day of the Lord. It shows us both. Now, these, by the way, there's a lot of rabbis, not Messianic rabbis, a lot of rabbis who have said this. It's just that there's so many words in the paragraphs that say it that you get lost. It's really hard to follow. But they say this very thing, that at the akedah, when Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, at that spot, that he saw the coming of the Messiah. Now, they don't say it's Yeshua. He saw the coming of the Messiah, and he saw the Messianic kingdom, the day of the Lord. You can find that on your own. So, he saw my day. All right, so let's look at ha-makom. Here's Jacob at ha-makom. We're going to look at some verses that talk about ha-makom. There's a bunch of them in this passage in our Torah portion in Genesis 28. Verse 11. He came to ha-makom. He spent the night there because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones. Sorry, it does not say that in Hebrew. It says he took the stones, is what it says in Hebrew.
Not just one of the stones.
It does not say one of the stones. It says, and he took of the stones of ha-makom and put, it does not say it in Hebrew, and put under his head and lay down in ha-makom. 3 times in one verse, it says ha-makom. Now, remember, he was told by his dad, go to Haran. So he went to Haran, and he came to where? Ha-makom. So you think Haran is ha-makom, but it's not. It's not. 3 times it says ha-makom in this verse. And that's where he has the dream. He sees the ladder. And then in verse 16, then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely Yehovah is in ha-makom. It does not say this place, it says the place, ha-makom. This is ze. Ha is the, just definite article the. So it says, he awoke from his sleep and he said, surely Yehovah is in ha-makom. Where is God? I mean, just real simple. Where is God?
Everywhere.
Keep it even simpler. Where is God? In heaven. Keep it simple. Where's God? In heaven. That's ha-makom. That's ha-makom.
God's place.
God's place. That's where God is. He's in ha-makom. Now you can say, yeah, he's everywhere. Yes, he's in the hearts of believers. Yes, you can do all kinds of stuff. But if you just keep it super simple, especially back here in Genesis, where is God? In heaven. All right? That's ha-makom. That's what I'm going to show you. That's ha-makom. It was at ha-makom that Abraham saw the coming of the Messiah and saw the death of the Messiah and saw the day of the Lord. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Verse 17. He was afraid after he woke up and he said, I didn't know. The Lord is in ha-makom. I didn't know. He was afraid and he said, how awesome is ha-makom. Again, it does not say this place. It says the place here. How awesome is ha-makom. This ha-makom is none other than the house of God. Well, where's the house of God?
Heaven.
In heaven. That's ha-makom. It's none other than the house of God. And this is the gate of heaven. That is a weird statement. This is the gate of heaven. Americans don't know what a gate is. Because we have something else in our minds when we say gate than they do in the Middle East. Gate is a room this big or smaller. And all lining the walls are chairs or thrones in which the elders sit to make judgments. And this is where buying and selling is done and judgments are made and people learn from the Torah. The elders teach. That's what a gate is. It's not like a swinging door. That's called a door of the gate. But the gate itself is a big room in which judgments are made. Now he's saying the gate of heaven, where judgments are made. Where are they made?
Heaven.
Where?
In the gate.
In ha-makom. They're made in ha-makom. So if ha-makom is Missouri, and that's, the direct picture of heaven, then that's where the decisions of heaven are made, in Missouri. So wherever this is, and it's not Haran, which is Babylon, wherever this is, we need to know where it is. Because that's where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac.
Yep.
That's where he saw the day of the Lord, and he saw the Messiah. That's where Jacob says, God is in this place. And so he makes a promise. And he says, for this is the house of God, ki im beit Elohim, v'zeh sha'ar hashamayim. And this is the gate of heaven. He's making a promise that that is where the house of God is going to go. Where's the house of God?
Right.
I mean, like the literal house of God, like where people go and pray and stuff like that.
Israel.
In Jerusalem. In Jerusalem. Okay. Let's go to 28:19. Then he calls the name of ha-makom, and it does not say that place, it says the place, ha-makom. And he called the name of ha-makom Bethel, house of God. That's why it's called Bethel. However, previously, the name of that city had been Luz, which means almond. It means an almond sprout. It does not mean light, that's Spanish. It's in Hebrew. Okay. Then Jacob made a vow and said, if God will be with me and keep me on this journey that I take. I thought he had already made the journey. Didn't it say he already made the journey to Haran?
He did.
Obviously not. Obviously he went back. And this is what the rabbis say. The rabbis have a story after story after story after story as to why he was on his way to Haran and he came back to wherever this is. And they've got lots of stories, and they're all pictures to learn from, but they're convoluted, they're hard to follow, especially if you don't know where ha-makom is. But if you know where ha-makom is, it's easier to follow. So obviously he hasn't gone on the journey. He says, if God will be with me on this journey I take, and give me food to eat, garments to wear, and I return to my father's house in safety, then Yahweh, or Yehovah, will be my God. And this stone, what? Which stone?
He put under his head.
It said he put stones, plural. Didn't it? Well, now here it says the stone. And it does say it in Hebrew. This stone. Ha-ibn hazeh. The stone, the this. And this stone, which I have set up as a pillar, will be God's house. Well, where was God's house for 2,000 years? No, on earth. Where was God's house? In Jerusalem, on the Temple Mount. And of all that you give me, I will surely give a tenth. Well, who's he going to give a tenth to? There's no such thing as priests. There's no temple. Who's he going to give tenth to? Where? How? How's he going to give it to God? Burn it up? How's he going to give it to God? What he's doing is he's prophesying that this place will be the temple where all of my seed will give a tenth. Who's his seed?
Israel.
Israel. And they will give a seed, they will give a tenth in the temple. That's what he's doing. He's prophesying, basically. He can't give a tenth. There's nobody to give it to. Abraham had to give it to an angel who came down, Melchizedek, who was the king of heaven, king of Shalem. He gave it to him. Melchizedek brought it back to heaven. Well, who's Jacob going to give it to? There is nobody. So he's prophesying about his seed. Okay, now let's go to chapter 35. This is when he's already gone to Haran. He's been there for 20 years. He has had all of his children, all 12 children, through Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. He's had his 12 children. He's on his way back to Israel, back to Canaan, and he stops where he stopped on his way to Haran. Now he's coming back. He goes right back to the same place, chapter 35, look at verse 1. God said to Jacob, "Arise, go up to Bethel, and live there, and make an altar there to God." Where do you think he's going to put the altar? On the Even HaShetiyah, the same place where Abraham built his altar to sacrifice Isaac. All right, verse 7. He built an altar there and called the place El Bethel, God of the house of God. El means God, Beit is house, El is God. God of the house of God. Because there God showed himself to him. God revealed himself to him. When he fled from his brother, God revealed himself to him. What did he see when he fled from his brother? What did he see? He saw a ladder going up, and there were angels ascending and descending on it. But this doesn't say that. This doesn't say he revealed heaven to him. It says he revealed himself, God himself, to Jacob at ha-makom. Do you see the problem here? Nowhere in the passage does it say that when he came to Bethel and he saw this vision, nowhere does it say that God revealed himself to Jacob. It describes this: the ladder with the angels going up and down. Now, if you can't follow this, you're not thinking clearly about what Abraham saw, and now Jacob is seeing it. What did Abraham see?
The ladder.
No, Abraham. What did Abraham see? My
day.
My day. He saw the coming of the Messiah, and he saw the day of the Lord. I would say that Jacob saw the same thing. I'd say he saw the same thing. He saw God. He saw Yeshua. He saw angels going up and down. The reason I say this is because when they were asking Yeshua who he was, one of his answers was, "You will see angels ascending and descending." That was his answer. "Who are you, Yeshua?" "You shall see angels ascending and descending." Well, what the heck are you talking about? Talking about what Jacob saw. Jacob saw Yeshua. And the reason I say that is because here it says that he named the place El Bethel because God revealed himself to Jacob when he was on his way to Haran. Because there God had revealed himself to him, 35:7, when he fled from his brother. All right, now let's go to verse 13. Then God went up from him in ha-makom, where he spoke with him. So now God has revealed himself twice to Jacob at ha-makom. Verse 14. Jacob set up a pillar. I thought he set up a pillar in the first time. Didn't he? Didn't he set up a pillar the first time? There were many stones that he put under his head, and then it says one stone. And he took that one stone and he set it up as a pillar. Now when he's coming back from Haran, he does the same thing. Jacob set up a pillar in ha-makom where he spoke with him, a pillar of stone, and he poured out a libation on it. And he poured oil on it. If you have oil poured on you, do you know what you are in Hebrew?
Slippery.
In Hebrew. Besides being slippery. Mashiach. Mashiach. Anointed. That's what the word anointed means. It means smooth or rubbed or poured with oil. That's what Mashiach means. So now there's a rock at, I would say, on the Even HaShetiyah in Jerusalem at the Temple Mount, and it's the Messiah. It's Messiahed. It's a stone. It's a rock that has been anointed with oil. It is the Messiah. All right, let's go to verse 15. So Jacob named the place where God had spoken with him Bethel. I thought he named it El Bethel.
He did.
Which one is it? El Bethel or Bethel? Did he name it El Bethel or Bethel? Well, we got two different versions here, but they're talking about the same instance, the same moment of time.
Right.
So you can believe this or not, but this is setting us up to see this. It's the same thing that Abraham saw. He saw my day. So if you see the Messiah, you should see the day of the Lord.
Right.
The house of God, the kingdom, heaven. You should see it. Because they're the same thing.
Right.
Yeshua and the kingdom are exactly and precisely the same thing. Every word out of Yeshua's mouth, everywhere he went, he said, I'm proclaiming what?
The kingdom.
The kingdom. The gospel of the kingdom. The kingdom, the day of the Lord. Everything Yeshua said was about the day of the Lord. Everything. Everything. Every rebuke, every blessing, every description, every narrative, every parable, everything was about the day of the Lord. They are the same. Yeshua and the day of the Lord are precisely the same. If we do, this is what I'm going to show you, if we do Judaism, the ways that God established, taught Abraham, taught Isaac, taught Jacob, and they taught their children, if we do those, we should see Yeshua, and we should also see God's dwelling, heaven or the day of the Lord, or both. If we don't do them, our eyes are fuzzy and we don't see what we're supposed to see. You may learn, but I guarantee you're not going to learn what's built and baked into the narrative. You're not going to see it. But if you do Judaism, if you rehearse the things in Judaism, your eyes will pop open because you'll make connections to the things you're doing, like Shabbat, like when we keep Shabbat. And we read about the kingdom. You are making connections in your mind between the kingdom that's coming and us doing it right now on Shabbat, doing Shabbat as a picture of the kingdom. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of these connections and pictures. But if you don't do the things, you're not going to see clearly and you're not going to understand clearly. So this is my take on it, that it's named El Bethel, God of the house of God, and house of God, because they're the same thing. If you study the house of God, you will see God. If you study the priesthood, the sacrifices, the kosher laws, the new moon, the garments of the priest, you will see God. You'll understand God. At least you should. Okay. Yes, All right, so let's look at this stone. First he says there's stones, plural, and then it says one stone that he anoints and turns it into a Messiah, a Mashiach. Genesis 28, verse 11, it says plural. And I've checked this 4 times in Hebrew just to make absolutely sure. I checked it and checked it and checked it. Genesis 28:11. He came to ha-makom, spent the night there. The sun set, and he took one of the, it does not say one of, he took of stones of the place of ha-makom and put under his head. That's what it says in Hebrew. And he took of the stones, or some of the stones of ha-makom, and put under his head. But then in 28:18, it says, so Jacob arose, and he took ha-even, the stone. Well, which one? And how many did he take? And which one did he take from those, however many there were? So here's what the rabbis say, so that you're not confused. Look at this. The Holy One, blessed be He, made them into one stone. Because they see in the text, we got a problem. There's stones, plural, and then he takes one stone. Well, which one? Well, the Holy One took all the stones and made them into one body. Made them into one body. Aren't we living stones? Yeah. Plural? Yeah. But we are one body of Messiah, who is the stone, the rock. Yes? Yeah. So that's why they said this. That's why the rabbi said this. They didn't believe in Yeshua, but they saw the picture. Yeah. We know Yeshua, we can put it together with the picture that the rabbi saw. It's fantastic. The Holy One, blessed be He, made them into one stone. That is why it is stated, verse 18, and he took the stone, in the singular, that he had placed at his head. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah. This is the Messiah. That rock, that stone at ha-makom is the Messiah. It's a picture of the Messiah. So let's look at the stone. Let's look at the rock. Isaiah 8:14 says, then he shall become a sanctuary. He will become a what? Right. What's a sanctuary? A building. The temple. He will become a building? A house? El Beitel and Beitel. They're the same thing. God of the house of God is the house of God. They are the same thing. If you see the temple, if you study the house of God, if you study the temple, and by the way, I want to put a plug in for Joseph Good. Joseph Good has been studying the temple for 32 years. He's a Christian. He's not Jewish. And all he studies is the temple. And he's made a three-dimensional model of it, digital model of it. He's been studying this every tiniest detail. Do you know why? Because it says in Ezekiel 43, it says, if they repent of their sins, let them study the tavnit, the picture of the temple, and they will know me. Okay? If you study Judaism in all of its details, looking for Yeshua, you will come to know God better and better and better and better and better. And that's what it's all about. You'll come to know God better and better and better. He will become a sanctuary. That freaks me out. That God will become a building. Now maybe that doesn't freak you out. That freaks me out. How can God become a building? But to both houses of Israel, a stone, he will become a stone to strike and a rock to stumble over. So who's the he? He, God, will become a rock that will cause Israel to stumble. God will become my Yeshua, my salvation. Hinei el Yeshuati, avtach belo echad, ki yaziv zimrat ya Adonai, vayechili Yeshua. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and will not be afraid, for he has become my Yeshua, is what it says in Isaiah 12. Think about that. He has become my Yeshua, my salvation, my Jesus. And that's what it's saying here. He will become a sanctuary. and to the house of Israel a stone to stumble over. Then Isaiah 28:16. Therefore thus says the Lord God, behold, I am laying in Zion a stone, a tested stone, a costly cornerstone, the foundation. And you know this is the Messiah, yes? Yeah? I mean, that everybody knows that one. The cornerstone. People make churches called the cornerstone, and they sing songs about the cornerstone. Lots of songs about the cornerstone. They say it's Jesus. Well, it says the foundation, firmly placed. He who believes will not be disturbed or messed up. But he says he's a stone, just like the stone that was erected and anointed. Yes? No, it does not say that. Does not say temple.
My kingdom.
When Peter says, who are you? Or they're asking Yeshua, who are you? Another one of the answers. He says, well, who do you say I am? And Peter says, you are the Messiah, Ben Elohim, the Son of God. And Yeshua says, well, because you said that what you said is a rock. And on that rock, what you said, I will build my
House.
It doesn't say house. It doesn't say Messiah. It doesn't say church. It says ecclesia. It's the same word used in Acts 26 when it's talking about a group of people worshiping Diana and Artemis of the Ephesians. Same word, ecclesia. It just means a group of people called out from another group. That's all it means. Translated congregation is not bad. It does not say church. So this is what he's quoting when he says this. That's the costly cornerstone, the foundation. That belief that Yeshua is the Messiah. All right, now here's what we looked at last week, Daniel 2:34 through 35. Remember, there's the kingdom of Edom and the kingdom of Jacob. In the day of the Lord, you have all the kingdoms, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then the bad one, Rome, and then the 10 toes. And they all are smashed and destroyed at the same time by what? By the rock, right. And that's what it says here. You continued looking until a stone, an Evan, same word, was cut out without hands, and it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them. The iron, who's the iron? No. The one that smashes everything in pieces. Rome. Who's the clay? Well, we don't know what the clay is. Who's the bronze? Who's the bronze? Greece. Greece. The silver, who's the silver? Just work your way up.
Well, that would have been
Medo-Persia, and then work your way up more. And the gold, who's the gold? Babylon. So it's Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. And all of them are crushed together by the rock. Crushed at the same time and became chaff, and the wind carried them away. But the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain. When does this happen? In the day of the Lord. Happens in the day of the Lord. From the 6,000, actually it happens the very beginning, the first 7 years, from 6,000 to 6,007, in the day of the Lord. And then it becomes a mountain. So what do you think the mountain is? I'll give you a hint. The rabbis say every time you see mountain in the Bible, it's a kingdom. So what do you think the mountain is? The kingdom. But it started out as Yeshua. And it becomes the kingdom. I'm telling you that the kingdom and Yeshua are exactly the same. Yeshua is nothing like the church. Nothing. He's like whatever the kingdom's going to be like.
Right.
They are the same. They are one and the same. And we keep seeing these patterns over and over that Yeshua and the kingdom are the same. Yeshua and the kingdom are the same. Yeshua and Judaism are the same. Yeshua and the ways of God are the same. We keep seeing it over and over again. And here we're seeing very clear verses that say Bethel equals El Bethel. The house of God equals God of the house of God.
Right.
They're the same thing. Yeshua is the kingdom, or exactly like the kingdom. It's like this. If you have a disease like cancer, and you can identify those cells, and you take one of those cells and you stick it in a cat, and then that cancer just explodes and takes over the cat. That's what this means. That tiny seed of Yeshua is going to fill the whole world. Well, that seed is not Christianity. That seed is Abraham, Isaac, Israel, and his children. And if any Gentiles want to come into that, they're more than welcome. But it's not the other way around. It's not Christianity saying, oh, Jews, come to us. We will absorb you with our seed, and you will become what we are. No, it's the other way around. Jews are saying, you want to come in? Come in. If you want to. That's what grafted in means. Gentiles are grafted in. Jews are not grafted in. Jews are the natural plant. They don't have to be grafted in. They are one and the same. The kingdom and Yeshua are one and the same.
When you take a limb from something and graft it into another plant, the grafted piece doesn't change the original one.
Exactly.
It changes,
when you take the wild olive branch and you graft it into a natural olive tree, it does not change the tree.
Yeah.
Even if you have 1,000,000 of them, 1,000,000 branches, it doesn't change the tree.
The piece grafted in changes.
Right, the piece that is grafted in changes. That is exactly right. So the whole world is upside down and backwards. My mom used to always say this.
Right.
Michael, the whole world is upside down and backwards. And I'd say, you're so stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, she was right. The world is upside down and backwards. But in the kingdom, it's going to fill the earth. What's going to fill the earth? Whatever that seed is. Whatever that seed is. Okay, let's talk about the seed. Oh, look at these comments about the seed. So here's the verse. I will give it to you and to your seed, zerah, your zerah. Will also be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west, east, north, and south. And in you and in your seed will all the families of the earth be blessed. Now we know Yeshua is the seed because of Galatians 3:16. But who cares? Who cares? What about the 4,000 years of history before that? And when Christians read Galatians 3:16, that the Messiah is the seed, singular, they take 4,000 years of, quote, Judaism and pitch it. But what about those 4,000 years of the seed? It didn't just disappear. It didn't go away. And furthermore, in this passage, he said it earlier to Abraham, then he said it to Isaac in Genesis 26, and now he's saying it again. Jacob, to your seed I will give what? Give what? He doesn't say the kingdom here. What does he say? Come on, guys, what does he say? You will spread out to the west and the east and the north and the south, and then he says, I'm going to give you what? This land. We read it at the beginning of the teaching, remember? He says, Jacob, I'm going to give you this land that you're laying on. Remember?
Yep.
So how come the church doesn't own Israel? No, because they're not supposed to. Jews are supposed to own Israel. That's God's seed.
Right.
Israel is God's seed.
Makes sense.
Christians is not God's seed. If they come into Judaism with Yeshua and are born again, then they're part of God's seed and can partake of Israel. But not the other way around. God doesn't promise to the church, I'm going to give you the land of Israel, north, south, east, and west from Jerusalem. He doesn't say that. He said it to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, and to his seed, which is Israel, and then eventually the Messiah. They are one and the same. Israel and Yeshua are one and the same. They talk the same, they look the same, they act the same, they smell the same, they produce the same fruit, they are the same. All right, so here's what the rabbi said about this weird passage about the seed. Although we do not find in Scripture that the Holy One, blessed be He, associates His name with that of the righteous during their lifetimes. You can't find it in the Bible, where God says about Himself, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, while Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are still alive. Except this one instance. This is the only time in the Bible where God associates Himself with a living person. Why? Well, there's a reason, but why does He associate Himself with the people that have His seed after they're dead and not while they're alive? Because we are subject to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination. But after we're dead and we're awaiting the resurrection, we're no longer subject to the evil inclination. We're something different. We're not us anymore. We're something different. We're just the seed. That's all. Without all the flesh and all the nonsense. And so God doesn't associate Himself with living righteous people, only dead righteous people, except right here. This is the only place in the Bible. God does not consider even His holy ones as righteous until after their deaths, when they're no longer subject to the evil inclination. Nevertheless, here He does. He associates Himself with living Isaac. Why? Why? Abraham, Isaac, and now He's talking to Jacob. Because He's talking about the seed. He wants to establish the seed. And it's singular. Not zera'im, plural. It's zera, singular. Which Paul makes a big deal about in Galatians 3:16. He says, speaking about the seed, it talks about the Messiah. Seed singular, not plural. Why? Because it's one Messiah. But from the very beginning of the story, you've got seed being spread out. Like with Abraham, he had Keturah and he had all those kids, right? Seed didn't go in them. The seed, the singular, went into one guy, Isaac. And then Isaac had two kids, Jacob and Esau. And God says, it's not going into Esau, it's only going into one, singular, Jacob, Israel. So that's what it says here. What I promised to Abraham concerning his seed, I promised in reference to you and not in reference to Esau. This is hard to follow. I did not say to him, for Isaac will be called your seed. I didn't say it like that. Isaac will be called your seed, I said, which would signify that all of Isaac's seed would be regarded as Abraham's. But I said it this way, for in Isaac, inside Isaac, will be your seed.
Right.
In other words, the children are buried in there. The seed is buried in those children somewhere. It's only one. This is what Galatians 3:16 is quoting. Singular, not plural. This is what he's quoting.
Right.
He's quoting every time it says to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that God always calls it singular, zerah, not zerayim, plural. And he's saying, Esau, Rome, Christianity is not my seed.
Right.
It's not Yeshua. It's nothing like Yeshua. It's like Esau. And so Yeshua has to match the seed, which is Israel, Judaism.
Correct.
They have to match. And if your Yeshua isn't just exactly like Judaism, it ain't Yeshua.
Just like Ishmael is not.
Yeah, like Ishmael was not in the seed, and Esau was not in the seed.
Right.
If your Judaism is not exactly like Yeshua, it ain't God-given Judaism.
It ain't real Judaism.
It's not the real deal. They have to match. Yes.
If we call Abraham our father, then we should be doing what the father of Abraham did.
Yes, if we call Abraham our father, we should be doing the deeds of Abraham, which is he kept the mitzvot, the Torot, the Meshar, I can never remember the first one. The Mishma'at,
Mishmah.
the Mishma'at,
The
the mitzvot, the Hokim, and the Torot. Judaism. Abraham did Judaism. Genesis 26:5. And if we believe in Yeshua, we should be doing that. So he says, the seed is in Isaac would be the seed. In other words, only one part of Isaac's kids, but not all of Isaac's kids. So this really, really, really limits, I'm sorry to say, but it's true. It really limits who God considers the seed.
Right.
Christianity, and I understand why, most people in Christianity want inclusive. They want to throw a net out and get as many as they can, which, makes sense. You want a lot of people. You want people to be happy and free, and, that's cool. So they want to be inclusive. The problem with that is God ain't. He's just not. He never was. He took one tiny little thing out of a whole bunch and said, see that little tiny thing? Follow that. Now here it is again. It's splitting again. There's 50 of them, just the one. Follow it. Oh, it's split again. Now there's 4, just take the one. And he kept doing this over and over and over again. Okay. The seed is singular, not plural. Okay, let's look at this prophecy this promise that Jacob said. He said this. He said, Ki in Beit Elohim v'zeh sha'ar hashamayim. For this, ha-makom, the place, is the Beit Elohim, house of God, v'zeh, and it is sha'ar hashamayim, is the gate of heaven. The gate of heaven. I really don't want to say this phrase, but I name the teaching this phrase. But I don't want to say it. On earth as it is in heaven. I hate that phrase. I hate it. I've heard it all my life, and I've never heard it said right. Not one single time. Not once. Because Christians think it's part of, quote, the Lord's Prayer. And then they say it like, on earth as it is in heaven. What the heck are you talking? Well, what's heaven like? If heaven is filled with zebras, then the earth should be filled with zebras. If it's on earth as it is in heaven. People don't reflect heaven. We don't reflect heaven. We reflect us, which is garbage. If you're going to reflect heaven, you only reflect heaven for a few seconds or a few minutes, maybe, while you're doing Judaism. And then you go back to being subject to the Yetzer Hara. But when you're dead and you're out of the way and you're just doing Jewish stuff and you're learning, for that moment, you reflect heaven. You're holy. That is correct. For that moment. And then you go back to being you again. Well, I guess we got to look at it. Matthew 6. I don't know if I'm going to be able to clarify this because it is so deeply indoctrinated wrong. And you've heard it all your life, haven't you? Well, I'm Jewish and I've heard it all my life. You've heard it all you didn't hear it before you were a believer? I bet you did. Every time you heard people quote the Lord's Prayer, you were never around, you never heard anybody quote the Lord's Prayer or say or mumble the Lord's Prayer?
Yeah, I probably did.
Probably. Okay, Matthew 6:9. And I've heard this my whole life, just like this. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give up. You just passed up the most amazing thing on the planet. Yeshua said, if you're going to pray, pray like this. May we be on earth like it is in heaven.
Right, that's what it's saying.
Nobody thinks that. So what's heaven like? Like ha-makom. What was on ha-makom? What was on ha-makom? The temple. The temple. Judaism. It's the navel, it's the belly button of the world where Judaism is, where all of Judaism is. It's like the hub of the wheel. All of the nation of Israel swirled around the temple. That was the center point for all of Judaism. That's what heaven's like? On earth as it is in heaven? There's two Jerusalems. There's one on earth, there's one in heaven. There's Yerushalayim Hamata, which means Jerusalem below. And there's Yerushalayim Me'ola, Jerusalem above. And they reflect each other. They are exactly like each other. And that is what Jacob was saying. What he's saying. He saw it. So he said, we're going to put the temple here. And the gate of heaven. In other words, heaven's decisions are going to be here. Heaven's elders are going to be here. Heaven's righteousness and justice is going to be here. Well, where's here? Where's here? Jerusalem, the Temple Mount. Can you see how important the temple is?
Yeah.
Even though there is no temple right now. Yes, there is. It's in heaven. Well, if you want to find out what it's like, study the temple. Why do you think the flag of Israel looks like this? It's the same upside down as it is right side up. It's a triangle pointing up and a triangle pointing down, and blue of water above and blue of water below. Why? On earth as it is in heaven. The triangle pointing up is man. The triangle pointing down is God. And the intersection of God and man is Judaism, the Mogen David. That's why our flag is like that. In Genesis, what is it? 1 or 2? It's 1. Where God separates the rakia, the expanse above, from the rakia below. There's water, and he pulls some water up, and he pushes some water down, mayim. And the upper water, he calls shamayim. Well, mayim means water. Shamayim, heavens, are made out of water. And the water below, that's why it's blue, and the water below is earth, is people. On earth as it is in heaven. So Judaism is how you reflect heaven. Doing Judaism is how we reflect heaven. If you don't do Judaism, you don't reflect heaven. Nor do you get to know what God's really like. You may be born again, you may know him, but you sure don't know him well. And here's Jerusalem above, and it's reflected in the shadow. It casts a shadow on earth of Judaism. So this is, you can believe this or not believe it. But this is what all the rabbis say. They've said it for 4,000 years. That Jacob established the place of the temple. And that's where the Holy of Holies was, on that altar that he set up, on the stone that he set up. That's where the Holy of Holies was, which is a little model of God's house, where God lives. So I would encourage you to do more Judaism. Study it. You need to figure out what you're doing. You need to figure out why you're not doing what you're not doing, and figure out how to do what to do. And then once you practice it and you do it, open your eyes and ask God to show you what it's a picture of. And you will come to know God better and better and better and better. That's what it's all about. Let's pray. Father, thank you for creating your ways and giving them to the Jewish people. Thank you, Abba, for teaching us from your ways what you're like, and what you like, and what you do not like. And I ask, Father, that we would reflect your house more and more and more, and that you would give us a fire as we put ourselves on the altar and just give ourselves to you and die. I ask that you would put a fire under us so that we can be sacrifices and learn from everything in our life. And we thank you for ordering all the events of our life to teach us about you and how you are and who you are. Thank you, Abba. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.